right. Okay, welcome to my presentation from film to digital. And let me give you a little bit of a little history here of the news. Edward Butler Sr., okay, actually began publishing the news in 1873. And during his publication, it was just a Sunday paper, believe it or not. And from 1914, he eliminated the Sunday paper and went to a weekly paper. And of course, the Courier Express and the Buffalo Evening News had a gentleman's agreement that they would not publish on Sunday. And the Courier Express also said they wouldn't publish an evening paper. It was strictly a morning paper. Well, in 1977, Warren Buffett purchased the Buffalo News, and that all ended, unfortunately. So I started the year after the Courier ended, and my official title was Marketing Services Photographer. At the time, there was 4 of us in our department. Our immediate supervisor was George Karen, and 3 other photographers. One of our duties was to make these little ID photos to every employee that was hired. This was the staff, advertising staff in 1983, and it was one of my very first assignments to photograph the complete staff, individually and group. Every one of those employees used to give me photo work orders to do for their businesses or their clients, I should say. And it was quite a task between the 4 of us. Earlier, I left these images in just to show you that I was never really a fine arts photographer. This was part of my portfolio that I showed at when I was interviewing for the news. And I think these political images that I've taken over the years helped me get into the door. I was also very knowledgeable in codolith printing. I found it very interesting just to eliminate all the gray tones. Codolith, for anybody that doesn't know, is a film that eliminates gray tones, and it's also used for silk screening and different types of color keys for printing and so on and so forth. And back in '84, the Erie Community College, just built that college. I did some photos for them, and they liked it so much they actually used it in their, if I go back, they actually used it in their report for that year and as their front cover, which I was kind of happy about. And but getting back to the news, over the years, the news changed their headlines and tried to rebrand themselves so many times, and just to keep circulation going, because as the area, especially the senior people, died off or moved away, or businesses closed and left the area, pop circulation went down and down and down, and they always tried to regain that revenue. So this is the home finder, and I'll just go to the previous slide. You can see, sorry, this slide here was an earlier version of the home finder, which was an all black and white version of the home finder. Again, this started the color version of the home finder. We also did sunrise and different sections And we also, the big supplement in the Sunday paper was the Sunday magazine. And I would say at that point in time, 75% of our work in our department came from the Sunday magazine, because we acted out of art department and the marketing service department acted like a small advertising agency for people and businesses that couldn't afford an agency. If you had a small business like Pitry here, they didn't have ad slicks back in the days for their products that they sold. So they brought, or we went out to their location and photographed them for the newspaper. Same thing with S&E Wholesale. They used to make and design their own rings. Well, naturally, they're not going to have an ad slick for that, so they can advertise in the paper or magazine or whatever. And again, that was part of our duties to go out photographing. And these are all bypass images, by the way. And so is this. This is, here's an interesting statement here. This was back in 1983. The Buffalo News reaches over 840,000 readers. Well, our circulation certainly wasn't 840,000, but it was right around 645,000, I believe, on Sunday, which this publication came out. The way they interpreted it was that there was 2 people to a household that would probably read this. So again, stretching the truth a bit to sell the advertising. But again, the back of the magazine had this feature called Inside Western New York Business. And it featured smaller businesses in the area that couldn't afford full page ads in the regular newspaper, like AM&A's or a name brand store like a Target or so on and so forth used to run back in the day full page ads in the newspaper. And these ads actually sold for $500 a piece, which was very affordable. But the click was you had to buy 4 of them. So they got you for $2,000 for the year. You didn't have to care when you ran them. They didn't care as long as they got the money. Advertising really saved the Buffalo News. They went all out to try to get as much advertising as possible as circulation went down over the years. Here's another account I used to photograph for, was Premier Wine and Cheese. They also sold liquor. And we either used to go out there, set up a small little studio with a background and a couple of lights, photograph all their products, and then they would use them throughout the year. We were lucky if they brought them in-house, because it was a lot easier to do in-house because the studio at the News. Also, the back of the magazine had a full page, it was always a full page ad sold. This was one of my first color ads. And back in the day, we didn't have digital, so it was color transparencies. And I was always a nervous wreck shooting a color job for the News. And I would bracket, cool. I would bracket the hell out of it to make sure we had the proper exposure. Again, a location shot. Another color slide shot. Richard, I don't know if you remember Burnham's, but they were advertising very heavily during the influx of the electronic stores, their big box stores coming in. And they opened up their 4th store, as you can see on the bottom here, opening up their new store on Transit Road, because they were competing with Silo and Sun and some of the big boxes that were around back in the day that were coming in. Baby pictures. Did you ever think we'd do baby pictures? That was a weekly job. Daddy Wash Diaper Service ran a little 2x3 ad, and we had to go out there every week and promote somebody's baby. And the only way they would get a picture is if they sign a contract for their diaper service for a year as a as for their business to grow. They a lot of people would want their babies to be featured in one of their ads. It was a cute idea, worked well for a while. This was a furrier, Sables, and I used to love them because they used to send in models, and it was just a treat to do something on a more of a professional basis than this photographing product. It was a lot of fun. And it goes on. These are all samples of the magazine and also supplements for the Sunday paper, which were also called mall tabs. I'll get to in a minute. And these are all examples of that, all done in a little basement studio. There was our location shots for furniture. Here's a towel ad, believe it or not, for Sears and Roebuck. This was a Petri ad of this nice little fine china shop. And again, another Delaware shop. I think that was Petri also. But anyway, I love doing food shots because we could eat the donuts. This was also a transparency shot, Dickey's Donuts. And a lot of the stuff that was in the paper, of course, I never got a byline for because of the fact that it was a paid ad. So a lot of it went unnoticed. Here is a mall publication. The Galleria Mall was being built. I want to say late 80s, early, or maybe even early 80s. But we sold a lot of mall publications, flyers in the Sunday supplement, and they were a standalone publication it may almost resemble a little booklet form. And this, I believe, was the mall's grand opening. And this, again, was a transparency. And inside the mall, especially at Christmas time, they would have us come in and photograph whatever these little merchants wanted. If it was just a front door opening or whatever, excuse these images because they're photographs from the brochure, so they're not that great. And again, a little more mall publication. This was taken inside the studio. This was taken on location. And again, all these were transparencies at the time. And then Buffalo Magazine Sunday Supplement ended its run in the late 1900s, 1990s. It never had any digital images reproduced in them. It was all film-based images. I want to take you back into the back in the day. This is basically what we used in the studio. Couple of old Nikons and Veronica ETRS medium format, and 4x5 view. And this was a small little studio in the basement of the News that we used. And after the first year I was at the News, my immediate supervisor, George Caron, retired. And he retired early because his wife was sick. Not that that matters. But so the job, his position went up for bid. I bid on it and got it. So I was in charge of the department. Unfortunately, the other two people that were there before me resented that and left. So I had to hire a few other not freelance, but part-time and full-time photographers to help me at that point. It's funny because George told me before he left, he picked me because what he saw in my portfolio, he knew I could handle the job for. And I thought that was a feather in my cap, so to speak. But Needless to say, it was a lot of work. But here's a couple of just head and shoulder portraits, film-based, transparency, and black and white, done back in the day in that little studio, which worked very well. And this was our CEO in
Hi, baby.
president
Hi, sweetie.
at the time. And again, here's a shot later on in digital in the same studio with the same lighting, basically. So it worked out fairly well, and it turned easily into a product studio by just bringing the background up, putting a table there, and I would use low lights, soft lights, which worked the best. I over the years found that they were a nice soft light to photograph any type of product, and feathering it also had a light boom over it if needed be. But this was just a carpet ad showing the different textures. They wanted to show the different textures in the carpet. But the lighting, as you can see, worked out great. This was my little copy stand that also doubled as my jewelry area to photograph. And what I used to do is to put a piece of glass over the stand, and this lifted high enough so I could slide pieces of plexiglass or leaves for fall shoots or something to put in the background to enhance the product. And basically you could put anything you wanted under there and to photograph, and it worked out well. This is an example. This wasn't for anything. It was just an example to show how I shoot the jewelry sometimes. But that's it. That was the little studio we had, and it worked out well. And this was our film lab, and it also doubled up as a print lab if we had a lot of things to do at once. And this was basically our print lab, our dryer and enlarger. So let's get back to Home Finder. It was originally a black and white publication. And we used to go out and photograph interiors, exteriors, bring them back, shoot them, come back, develop everything, and then had to get the contact sheets to the Home Finder editor for his pick of what he wanted to put in the story. And at that point, he would return the contact sheet for us, and we had to get the prints done by the next day. So we had like a 3-day window to get all this done. So we had a lot of latitude here after the shoot. Later on, they went to a color cover, which means we had to now present a transparency as well as the black and white images on the inside. So it was a little more work, and it took us a little more time, but we had a color lab called Spectrum Color Lab in Buffalo that used to do all our transparencies within 24 hours, which was really good. So we had them the next day along with the black and white stuff. But we didn't do any color transparency or developing any color whatsoever on premises. It was all done through Spectrum and other labs in the area. About 1996, with the news seeking more revenue because of the declining circulation, we came out with the bridal planner. It was a one-shot deal. It wasn't a monthly publication, it was a yearly publication. And this was their kickoff, and they wanted some real nice images. And again, back in the day, it was transparencies, and it worked out well, and it's still being offered to this day. They sell a lot of advertising to different people, whether it be gown or lingerie. This was a lingerie ad that we did for one of their ads for the book. it was about the 2000 we started testing digital. And I remember talking to a lot of professional photographers at the time, and especially one salesman that used to supply all our equipment. And he told us, Jim, it's just not there yet. It's just not there. It's a couple of years away, but it's just not there. And so we started testing these little cheap cameras, these Kodak cameras. And I think, Richard, you had said that there was you had one that was 8 pixel. I think this was really under 8 pixel, because our first studio camera, our first camera that we bought was a Fuji S1 Pro that you'll see coming up. And that was a 6 megapixel camera that finally gave us a full page. This one did not. This one could only give us maybe a 2x3 ad or a 4x5 ad at best before it started breaking apart. But I tell you, it took some great little pictures. Here's one that we did for Stanley Steamer. And to this day, they use this ad with that little camera. And then here's one that we did at one of the Delaware shops, one of the little dress shops. And again, not to this day, but it would hold up today. But Stanley Steamer still runs the same ad with the same two guys in it. So we joined the digital generation with the S1 Pro and all Nikon lenses. This made the transformation to not all our Nikon full frame cameras very easy because we had all the lenses. It was a good little camera in its day. And I gotta say, I was amazed with it. And it was the first camera digitally that we actually could do a full page tab with without it breaking apart and separating. So at this point, circulation, this was around 2002, was continually decreasing. And again, they rebranded their news headline, and I don't think they thought it was going to do anything. I don't think they thought it was supposed to design to bring in more customers, which it did not. So with their fleet of 56 trucks at that time, they wanted to rebrand themselves again with the original Buffalo News headline, which they did. And they wanted to put these images on some of their trucks. So they sent me out into Buffalo and to get some general shots of the Buffalo area digitally. And this one ended up on the truck. So it was kind of neat to have seeing a half a dozen trucks with my work on it. And let's go. And as they tried immensely to gain more revenue, they introduced a health section. And this worked out with also introducing extra sections, freebies at newsstands of Apartment Finder, Pick Digest. They also introduced Job Finder, Car Finder, anything they can sell that they could do. Discover magazine was a once-a-year publication and still is. And of course, the restaurant book is a once-a-year publication, which is sold only at newsstands and is not included in the newspaper. They also put in some presses, offset presses, to start making their own little advertising flyers to insert into the newspapers, and also for businesses to buy and actually send out if they wanted to do a direct mail. And in 2008, they reintroduced the magazine to compete with the Spree magazine, Buffalo Spree magazine, which was a very popular magazine in Buffalo at the time. And they wanted to get a foothold in that market. to try to create more advertising revenue. And so in fall of 2008, they had reintroduced the magazine, only this time it was a glossy stock, regular magazine type, like Time magazine or Life magazine or People magazine. And it was sold on newsstands. Oops, I don't know what happened here. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry. But let's get back to Home Finder. And of course, the Home Finder and Gusto had stuck around. It did not leave, but digital made it so much more easier to work with. This was a local morning news radio show. And we would bring them into the studio and photograph them with different poses and so on and so forth. And that worked. With getting more and more digital orientated, our now darkroom was converted into a digital darkroom with Big Macs. Now I'll show you. This was the Discover magazine, and this is one of our first digital images that ran. And of course, it showcased a lot of local community things and places to see that you could in Western New York. The health section, I was sent out to do. And these are some of the images that were submitted for that. Job Finder, again, I believe it came out in 2002. Anytime they've created a new type of publication, they always made a big deal of it at first. So they would take a cover and take two different images and sandwich them together and go on. But later on, as they redesigned it, it just went with straight photographs right on the cover. And these are some of the ones that I've shot over the years. This one was kind of neat. This was actually he was having what was he having, Richard? What does it look like? It looks like he was having he had a catheter in him. They were going up his heart.
Okay, yeah, some kind of heart procedure anyway. So
yeah, it was.
Is this at Buffalo General Hospital?
Yeah, this was at Buffalo General Hospital. It was a neat shoot.
Yeah.
And here's some other covers that I didn't bother with the final presentation, but Job Finder finally went away a few years ago, and Home Finder again still exists, and with the digital cameras, we were now able to go to a unfinished house like this, in which we used to walk away from because it would look horrible on the cover, and voila, put the grass in. I actually photographed a house that was very similar with their landscaping all finished, and just sandwiched it together, and we had a cover. The nice part about Home Finder, I find, shooting, is you not only get to see some very unique houses and unique styles. Like this was an all block house constructed back in the I want to say 60s, and was very nice. It was very modernized, And of course, an artist photographer lived in it and was selling it. And we had quite the rapport as we were talking, taking the tour, and I was photographing. But what I find unique about going out to these places, I get to see some of the best and great architecture in Buffalo. Because Home Finder is not like a Homes magazine type deal, it's more of an architectural in real estate marketing type of, and we try to feature some architectural stories in it every once in a while. And there's this company in Buffalo that actually takes reservations and does a walking tour of Buffalo to show you the different architecture, the style, the architecture's names and the history behind it, how much it costs, so on and so forth. And it's a very nice tour. And they have different tours for different areas. They have them for Tonawanda, they have them for the South Towns. They have one scheduled for Lackawanna that I actually have to shoot the Basilica in the next couple of weeks again. And I thought the one from Buffalo was very interesting, that this is basically the city today. I took this shot right after one of the Home Finder features in one of these condos. It was a nice fall, crisp day. Clouds were very ominous, and it just struck me beautiful that day. So I went up to the observation deck at the marina and took the cityscape of Buffalo, and that's basically what Buffalo looks today. And what's nice about it is if you go downtown and take that tour, you'll see buildings like this, the old Gold Dome Bank. They take you inside to tell you the architecture and all the history about it. Across the street from the Gold Dome Bank is the Hyatt Regency, which has been totally remodeled into upstairs restaurant, and they give you the history of that. Our new city, our Erie County courthouse, they take you to a tour of that. So the architecture, and what I really find fascinating is the old cathedrals in Buffalo are just gorgeous to photograph, and fun to do. Here's one you'll recognize, Richard, the Basilica.
Yeah, grew up a couple blocks away from that.
Yeah, and also this building downtown, the Ellicott Square building, complete glass roof, because in the day it was built and there was very limited electric light to light it up. So it's interesting, to say the least. So I get a chance to see some of this stuff. Also, this is some of the tabs that we did, or I did, I should say. Went out to this Maritime Academy here and photographed these military students, and they made their advertising piece. And a lot of jewelry. I shot a lot of jewelry for S&E jewelry, and it used to be called S&E Wholesale Jewelry, but it's just S&E Jewelry. And over the years, I've done catalogs and catalogs for them. I did their Christmas catalog. I did every year I did their Christmas catalog, which was a big job. I would take 50, 60 pieces and photograph them. And this was just one of their flyers that I photographed. And again, you can see the different aspects of my style in shooting. And last but not least, restaurants. The restaurant book came out early 2006, I believe, 2002 maybe. This is a 2009 page of the Scotch and Sirloin. Well, these people here every year it's the same shot. The surf and turf in front of the fireplace. Although I give them the option of doing all their interiors. Here's one that you might have seen recently on a national news, Lake Effect Diner. This couple owns this plus the sign of the steer, and they do a real good job. EB Greens, which is inside the hotel, the Hyatt Hotel downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And
Good. But you got a webinar?
It's just
Well, you got your haircut. Looks good.
and Salvatore's. Russ Salvatore, I've been shooting his stuff since 1983. And he recently, and he would always take the back page besides the doing a section in the book. In the back page, he just rebuilt this new restaurant down the street from his original one, and gave his original restaurant to his son. And he's called Russell's. And at the time I was taking this, all this gingerbread here wasn't finished. And I says, Russ, don't worry about it. I'll clone it in. Well, he thought I was a god when he saw the picture. And he just thought it was terrific. Here's Russ and his two dogs way back when for one of the restaurant shots. We used to have it called the restaurant book in a tab form. And that was what that was for. Also in the restaurant books, they do an advertorial piece. And this is a non-paid for ad because of the fact that they just want some advertorial in there, something to read besides just the ads themselves. And this guy here, Joe Kennedy, bought an old, got a sausage business, and we just had a great fun shooting that day, trying different lighting techniques in the back in his smoker, his walk-in smoker. Here's his wife in the deli counter, and of course, him and his wife in front of the business. So it was a nice little feature for them in the book, and it worked out very well. Payne's Restaurant did a lot of work for them, and he really loved my exteriors of his building. And to this day, I see him on TV that he uses in his advertising. Worked out well. And now I'm just going to show you some food shots that I've taken over the years. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Basically just using 2 lights and trying to shoot all these different angles. This one actually is not from that. That was actually a mistake. That's from the other restaurant. But the ones that I'm looking at here, this is from the Blue Lantern Restaurant, which is in East Aurora. And they're sort of a gourmet type of bar atmosphere. And here's another restaurant, Lombardo Restaurant on Hurdle Avenue. And again, gourmet Italian food. A lot of the restaurant people didn't care to show food. They were more atmosphere. And this is Hyde Park, and this is next to the Galleria Mall. And their atmosphere is very nice, very warm. This is what they wanted to show in their book. This one here is, this one surprised me, Francesco's, little bar on Seneca Street that rejuvenated itself into a gourmet restaurant. Nice atmosphere. with a little gourmet food. And it's always tough to tell the owner or the chef or whoever's doing these, which are plated beautifully, but I always like to shoot my food close up. It just gives it such a more texture and looks so much more meaningful than to have it way back when it's spread out. You just don't see the imagery as well. And Elio DiPaolo's restaurant, a big restaurant in Buffalo, not Buffalo, in Blaisdell, which is a suburb of Buffalo, and known for their Italian cuisine. And Dennis and I go way back to high school together, not high school, but elementary school. He went to St. Francis later. And
Yeah, I shook Ilio's hand. He was a wrestler, and
yes,
so see that
yes, he was. I shot him and his family many, many times for the newspaper.
Yeah, so
And,
he was
all these images here, Dennis loves them all. He still uses them to this day on his website, on his menus, and so on and so forth. And it tickles me that they think that much of it to use them. This was Route 5 restaurant, and they recently put in a copper bar area with the little digital Route 5 on it. So they wanted all their food shot there. I said, well, yeah, it's nice, but you're not really looking at the food. I mean, this is a food magazine, a food publication. So I kind of did it both ways. I did a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Worked out well. It was a bugger to light because of the fact that the copper reflection and trying to get the lights behind the bar and so on. But it worked. But some people just don't want to show food. These little bar areas just want to show their beer taps, all beer, and which is kind of funny. But it's all what they want, and this is what we give them. And if they don't want to show food, that's fine. They want to show their drinks. And finally, dessert. It's nice to see something light like this instead of a brownie or something brown. It's really tough to photograph brown areas and dark areas and really to get the detail out of them. But it's nice. And some people just want their exteriors done. And I got a lot of requests at one point for my night photography. I like to do my night photography just at dusk so we can still see some blue in the sky. And this was Harry's Harbor Club out at the lake. And it worked out very well. That's it, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed it.
Wow. Fantastic, Jim. And so I want to thank you for, boy, how many years worth of pictures is that?
33 years.
Okay. Now, does anyone have any questions about Jim's work or history of this or anything at all? Anybody?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jim,
Go ahead.
how did you get the rings to stand up for your jewelry shot?
Yeah, that's wax.
Wax. All right.
Wax. That I learned that early on. There's a soft, pliable wax you can buy, and you can buy it at any camera supply store. And what you do is put a little tiny bit on the bottom, and then I would use a plexiglass base and just put it the way I wanted it. And you could actually move it a little bit if the wax was pliable enough, but then it'll harden up a little bit. But I used to shoot in those little, the ones that rings were together was in a photo cube, a little white photo cube. And that worked out rather well because then I would put a white cardboard ring around my lens to reflect the light back into it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good
All right.
job.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Dick, I'd like to ask Jim, what is the most recent camera equipment you're using for some of your wonderful photography? I'll compliment you on it.
Right now, I'm using the Nikon 8, not the 850, the 840, the one before it. I was used, a lot of this was done with the D3, but I'm using the 830 or 840 now. I think, can't remember which one it is.
830.
Yeah, 830.
Very
Yeah.
good. I've used that camera myself, and I compliment you again on your quality of your photographs.
Thank you.
When you went out to the restaurants, did you have to take a lot of equipment with you to do all the
Yes.
lighting and stuff?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I took 3 alien bees with me with reflectors and sometimes a softbox, depending on if I remember how bad the restaurant was. I would take an additional alien bee, but I have a set of 4 alien bees and a travel case. And every time I went to a restaurant shoot, that was standard equipment. I brought it in on wheels, a little wheel cart type of thing. One of those little, I bought one of those little carry carts with the wheels on it, packed in everything with it, and with extension cords and everything else.
So yourself, you did not have an assistant.
No, no. Every job here that you saw, I had no assistant. I was all myself.
And did they feed you?
The mom and pops did. The big guys, they took all the food back into the kitchen. Why, I don't know. But the mom and pops did. The little pizzerias, the little, Dennis, of course, would feed me. It depended on the person and on the business.
Right.
Jim, I may have missed it, but on your food shots, how did you ever have to like coat them or something so the food would look real fresh?
Well, no, actually what I would do, a lot of the people didn't want their food touched. A lot of there were some coatings that I did with a little oil or a little butter to make them look a little more glossy. But basically what you saw and what they gave me is what they got. I always used to warn them when I made the appointment, don't cook before I get there. I will set up the lights. I will set up the background. I'll set up the area where you're going to plate it. Okay. Then you bring it out fresh. Because sometimes they would, I would get there and all the food's done and it looks like hell because it's been sitting there for a half hour already, and I says, this isn't going to work. But the trick was to get it fresh and get it cooked right off the bat and get it on the table or on the set.